I just realized that I didn't have a quote ready, but it's never fear because I always have a quote handy because I'm a nerd like that. I didn't know what else to say.
I've gotten into having quotes saved as well.
I like when I refer to myself as a nerd and people are like, oh, you're not. I'm like, I'm not trying to be self-deprecating. I'm just using that word as somebody who is like, has a lot of knowledge on one subject. Like, I'm over
Hmm.
that. But I'm like, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm like, I love myself though.
Oh my
Most
God, did I
times.
tell you that I didn't tell you. I watched that Netflix documentary last night, Conspiracy.
Mm-mm.
I'm sorry, that's what I wanted it to be named, Conspiracy, but it's actually named Seaspiracy.
Oh,
Because it's about like the fishing industry, and I'm like, what a missed opportunity to call it Conspiracy,
yeah.
but they didn't
That's,
call it that. It's like so stupid.
I wonder
but
if
that
they, go ahead.
but that being said, now I literally just said it. I'm like, that's what I'm gonna call it from now on. And everyone's gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, that's because you're way smarter than them. Yeah. Unless conspiracy was taken or something. But yeah, that's way better. That's just, anyway. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the terrible podcast relaunch. Just like the
Yes.
Phoenix. Yes. Just like the Phoenix, we are rising from the ashes of the fire, which was 2020, that burned
Yep.
away so much impurity. And everybody knows what I'm talking about.
I'm
So,
going to be honest with you, Brandon. My
yes.
fire kind of started in September 2019 and it just kind of rolled through 2020. And
Well, Ashley, I'm gonna kind of be honest. My fire started in like 2017 sometime. It was just like, trust me. So yeah, I get it. I've been living, I just been telling people I've been living in the future. That's my way to describe it. Now, I don't mean I'm actually living in the future, everybody, but what I'm saying is my perspective and point of view has led me to make changes in my life that have made me ready for 2020. For example, I stopped cutting my hair in June of 2019, just started letting it grow. And then lo and behold, months later, you can't go get your hair cut. So I was like, oh, it doesn't affect me. I started being poor way before 2020. So the fact I can't work doesn't affect me. But anyway, I kind of slowed down with, I changed my eating habits. I don't eat meat unless I know exactly where it came from, like someone's maybe farm or they hunted it or I killed it myself. So, but I do eat eggs still, cage free and butter or whatever when I can. So it's not like I'm strict about it, but I mean, it's not like I'm strict about my whole diet, but just that aspect of it. So, and that was in the end of 2019 also. And then, things kind of slowed down and you couldn't go out to eat and all these things. So I feel
well, there
like
was like
I
this,
hear what you're
remember that
saying.
shortage there was on like meat for a while? It was like
Yeah.
you could only have like one piece in your cart when you were like checking out at the grocery store.
Yeah, it was like our crappy version of the World War II, rations. But
Rationing,
like
yeah.
in World War II, they can only have meat like once a month. Us, it was like you can have it once a day, everybody. It's like what?
Yeah,
And people
and
were
they're
like
like,
spiraling. It's like
and
calm
they're like,
down, everybody. We'll be
you
fine.
you can't have a 2 pound burger, have a 1 pound burger. And like people are like, God damn it, what am I gonna do? It's like you'll be fine. Okay.
So anyway, I found a verse. And this is from the Tao, which I love to quote. It's verse 35. The supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without trying to. It is content with the low places that people disdain. Thus it is like the Tao. In dwelling, live close to the ground. In thinking, keep to the simple. In conflict, be fair and generous. In governing, don't try to control. In work, do what you enjoy. And that again is verse 35 from the Tao Te Ching.
Well, wow. I mean, I feel like we could spend a whole episode talking about that. Um,
Mm,
I think that if 2020 really taught me anything, which I don't know if it necessarily really did, um, I think that it. Well, no, I am going to say that it did because I feel like it's very reflective of that quote because
it
I feel
did.
like I really learned to live simply. You
Mm,
know, I the lifestyle that I had. I mean, even when we started this, a couple years ago, it's very different than the lifestyle I have right now. The lifestyle I had before was very much like materialistic and kind of opulent and over the top. And I'm still over the top in the way that I act, I think, and things I choose to like wear. Oh,
Well, I think that was just you expressing yourself, but maybe just in a negative way, but it was coming out, in opulence because that's just who you are. You are over the top and you like to be that person who, is out there
Well,
like,
I mean, and
hey, everybody, I'm shaking it up.
the person I was with, that was something that they were very interested in. And I think that now, my mom always says to me, like, I feel so sad for you. Your whole life can fit in your car. And I'm like, why do you feel sad about that? I don't need anything. I literally, as we all know, I need my ride or die, my BFF, my dog Giz, who's here with us right now. Like, I need her. I need a couple other things, and I'm good. That's like all I honestly really need to survive. um and be happy. I think everything else was just weighing me down, because it just, then you feel like you're obligated to like carry all this stuff with you. And so much has happened since we've taken our little sabbatical, that I've really realized I don't need any of that. Like, all of this stuff that I have, the minimal amount of stuff I have, could be gone tomorrow and I'd be fine.
I love that because that's where I also went through a lot in 2020. I moved back with my parents at 44 years old, which is been a crazy experience. Most people would say, or if that happened to them, most people might feel like they failed in life. But for me, honestly, I don't see it that way because like I've basically been able to sustain myself my whole life on my terms and the way I want to do things. And then the choice came really with this because I decided uh, that I didn't want to change what I was doing, certain aspects about my life I didn't want to change. So I couldn't really conform with a lot of things that were going on, but I really was compelled and I felt compelled to write this book. So I started to write it where I was living and I just knew I couldn't stay there. It was just too expensive and I
Mhm.
didn't have enough income and stuff. So I figured I can continue to write this book, which I have, and it's pretty much done. We'll talk about that later. But by doing that, making that sacrifice and living here, and it's great because I love my parents and they're like in their mid 60s, they're about to retire. So it's good that I'm here because I need to go through that same process. I did get rid of a lot of stuff when I moved, but I still have a lot of crap that I want to sell. So I got rid of most of the useless stuff and stuff I can give away, but I still kept a lot of things that have value and I things that I want to keep or sell, and I just kind of put that process on hold and I just have like, piles of boxes and stuff. So I have to get that organized and now I have an opportunity to do that, especially with the spring coming. So I want to start selling stuff. So I want to get to that same thing.
Hashtag spring cleaning.
Hashtag spring cleaning. And I feel that's really healthy to get to a spot where you only have a car full of things. I have a friend, shout out to my friend Danny. Danny and Adam, she has been really inspirational to me because she had way more stuff than I could ever had. She had a whole house. She used to be
Mhm.
married, she had a whole house full of things. And then she got divorced. That's I met her after that. We became really good friends. And then she ended up meeting this wonderful guy, Adam, and they moved, or he was from Connecticut and she was here because she went to school and here like in the 90s, and then she stayed here and lived here, but she's originally from Rhode Island. So she was still here in Connecticut after the divorce, met him, moved to Utah where he was living. He was just there visiting and then loved it, lived there for a year. Then they came back to Rhode Island to do that, to take care of all their stuff in their life, to consolidate everything. And now they're almost ready. They got married. They're almost ready to get back out with just like a car full of things and then go find somewhere to live. And it's so inspirational, because you don't have all these attachments and all these things that you're worried about. And I get it. I'm not judging anybody because I'm kind of borderline a hoarder. So,
Well, I
anywho,
mean, so since, like I said, since we took our little break, I also moved. I left LA. I moved cross country, and stationed myself in North Carolina. And it's been a huge adjustment for me, here, kind of leaving that life behind, and trying to figure out what does my life look like here now. And anyone who's ever done a cross country move, if you've hired movers, you know the nightmare that is having a moving company take your things. Um, and I feel like that kind of was really the catalyst to getting me to the point of like, I look at stuff and I'm like, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, because I I had to survive for so long without any of this stuff because my movers took forever. Um, And
It's a whole
you know what?
podcast in itself. We should do a
I
separate
know.
episode, like a bonus about
It's just
Ashley's poor experience with the movers. I just need to, just because of how terrible and crazy, because it was terrible. That's a
yeah.
synchronicity. I just wanted to acknowledge that for the audience. Like, everybody take a moment and take a deep breath and just give Ashley a little bit of, appreciation and love for the experience you went through with these movers. Because let me tell you, if it was me, I might be in jail, guys. Let me just tell you, because one of those movers might be still like nailed to my wall, allegedly, if that happened to me.
Yeah,
Anyway, go
I
ahead.
mean,
And
it
I'm a
wasn't
nice guy, guys. I'm real nice. I'm just saying this.
it wasn't the best experience, right? But at the same time, like, it was so draining emotionally and honestly, like, physically, being like, where is this? And then going through, like, do I have all of this?
So
Do
how
you know
long,
when you
just really quickly, how long were you without most of your stuff, just so people know?
So my stuff got picked up in LA on October 20th, and it got delivered here December 8th.
Okay.
And I got here November 10th.
And what
So
did you
about
have when you arrived with you? Like a
I had
suitcase?
I had Gizzy,
Of
obviously.
course.
I had Gizzy, and yes, I had a suitcase worth of things. But what you need to remember also is that I was coming from a place that was really, really warm, and so I traveled cross country, and so all I had was like shorts and t-shirts. And when I got here, I was like freezing cold. So then you got like, do you buy new clothes? And I kept being like, it's gonna come. It's gonna come. I didn't have a bed. I didn't have any bedding. I didn't have pots and pans. I didn't have like, I mean, obviously I could buy like shampoo and conditioner or whatever if I was going to take a shower. And Gizzy, had a certain way she was eating. Obviously we couldn't accommodate that because I had no way of cooking her food. It was, I mean, anything that you could think of in terms of outside of using the bathroom, I didn't have at all.
All right. I just want to
Uh,
give people a picture, just so they know.
yeah,
So you
it
weren't like, it
was,
wasn't like a week or something. It was like,
oh my gosh, no, no. And then, when it did get delivered, it's a game of like, is everything here? And when you have so much that I look back now and I'm like, I didn't need any of that.
yeah.
Why did I take it? And then it's like going through, do I have this? Do I have this? Is it broken? Does it work? Whatever. It was just so draining. And so when I do move again, it's going to not be that situation because I will only have my car full of stuff. I'll pack it. I know it's there and it's going to be there when I get to my location because it's going to be with me. So it's just, going back to that quote, I think that it really grounded me and brought me to kind of just living this more simple, in tune with everything going on, like life. And it honestly has brought about a lot more, not that situation with the movers, because that was not great, but I feel like I'm in such a more positive place than I have been for probably the last year.
That's great.
And Brandon, obviously we haven't been recording, but we still talk and kind of know what's going on. And I know he always tells me that he always says, you're killing it. And I feel like he's really seen this growth. I mean, I feel like my growth as a spiritual human being has just exponentially exploded probably in the past 6 months, you know?
Yeah.
But before that was real rough for me.
Well, yeah. I mean, just to speak of my own experience, I would read about that, about people attaining and understanding and about like spirituality or whatever. And it just meant something to me, and I would read about it and it would make sense. And I'd be like, yeah, that's true. But it took a while for it to start to take an effect in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And once it did, it was just crazy. And that's why I tell you that you're killing it, because I see that you're on the right path, even though this is what I understand. Even for me, it's hard. So for my own life, I'm like, man, this sucks. I don't know what's going. Am I making the right decisions? What am I doing now? Listen, now after yesterday, I know I'm on the right path after yesterday. We'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about that too. But it's still tough though. So until tomorrow, I might be like, man, am I doing the right thing? But what I don't sometimes, what the problem is I have my focus too narrow and I'm not like expanding it, because if I expand it to look to the past, to where I've been, and to look to the future of possibilities, then I'm like, oh shit, this is endless. Like, look at all the crap that I've been through. When you're climbing, you ever go mountain climbing or whatever, you go up higher, you're climbing a ladder, people are like, don't look down, don't look down. No, fuck you, look down, okay? And look and see where you came from. because if you're somebody that's listening to this and doing some self-work, their chances are you came out of a pit and you dragged yourself out all by yourself. Nobody else. I mean, people could have helped you and stuff, but you had to figure it out. So you might still think that you're in a bad place and you're not doing the right thing and you want to be doing better things and all this stuff, but that doesn't matter. You
Mm-hmm.
can only get there one way, and it's one step at a time, so when you can widen your focus and see that, it's just so much better than yeah. So that's why I see people like you and I'm like, you're fucking killing it, because I'm looking at the wide picture. I'm on the mountaintop
Right.
that looking down on you going, come up here, it's this way. Like, you got to figure out your own path. There's no set path, but yeah, you're going the right way, dude. You're killing it, so. And not like I think I'm some great person on a mountaintop. I'm just using it as allegory because there's a
Mm-hmm.
mountaintop above me I'm trying to get to too. You know what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As above, so below.
So I mean, we've kind of hinted at what's been going on for the past, however long we've been gone. We're just going to kind of give little updates. I know it's going to come through when we're talking about, the cards or our interpretation. I think it would be really fun, kind of maybe the next few weeks, to go back and listen to like the first few podcasts, especially when we're discussing the Major Arcana, and see if our thoughts have changed. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to look back and be like, what a naive imp about myself.
Imp. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, because then we could put a link in the new podcast so people can go back and listen if they want, or maybe we can get clips or something. But yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, we're also like way more professional now than we were when we started out.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So
I blame you for that.
And I'll take that. That's just
It is humor. I'm just very dry, but it's humor. I get it. I'm acknowledging that. Yes, you've made it much more structured. I'm just trying to pick on you.
Brandon, this is one of the only things in my life that has structure.
Yeah, no, I get it, and that's the reason I podcast you, is for the structure. So I'm just busting your balls because I know you could take it.
So let's just do like a quick. So you already talked about moving out, moving in with your parents, but kind of give our listeners kind of a brief synopsis of what you have going on, what you're doing, where you see yourself going, anything that you're working on or you're interested in, just so they know like what we actually have been doing.
Okay, well,
my whole life hasn't been my move.
No, I hear you. Well, recently I've been I still do this podcast with my friend Pat Oates and Dave Hintz, who's a comedian. It's called Bunk You, and you could find that on YouTube. So BUNKU. And we basically talk about, they'll try to find something that's like conspiratorial or whatever, and we talk about it and try to rip it apart and see what it really is. And I find that, it's never what it seems. It's like, it's never like one side or the other. It's not like, you hear this story on YouTube where you follow somebody and they tell you all this truth and this crazy conspiracy, and then you hear the mainstream and it's like never either of those.
Can you give us an example about something that you guys have talked about?
Yeah, we talked about Helen Keller, for example, because TikTok was like flipping out and all the younger people were like, Helen Keller wasn't real and all this stuff, and it was a lot of bullshit. And
what?
Yeah,
like, she wasn't a real human being?
Well, she was real, but she wasn't really as disabled as they say. And then they like break it all down, and when they talk about it, it's like, yeah, like, how did that really happen? And like, she was said to have like flown a plane, for like a while, and there's all these crazy things. And then it comes out that there's all these people who were saying that their grandparents met Helen Keller and she was like talking to them or like weird things, because she used to perform. So what I gather is, from me looking into it, is I just think it was something that was used. She was like kind of like a sideshow performer maybe, but it was turned into a little more, and then it was used as a political platform of its day, just like things are used today, right? It was just same, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. The tricks that people were using in power, they were using back then too. So they would just have these movements or whatever, but it looks like she could have been like a psyop, as they say, like, maybe, who knows?
Psyop?
Yeah, like maybe there was a real Helen Keller that was really psyop just means psychological operation. That's what it stands for. It's like
Like
a
a
lot of
robot?
the no, it's so there's these truthers, like if you go on the internet, all these people that are talking about conspiracy and stuff, and they talk about like what the government does and all this stuff, and they will say like they perform these psychological operations on people, which
Mhm.
there is a lot of truth to that. But again, you can get caught up in lifetimes worrying about that when it's like, listen, you got to just worry about yourself and working on yourself. And then once you gain the aperture, you could see the world for what it is, and then all that doesn't matter. So
Mhm.
anyway, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't. So, but anyway, so they were kind of saying that she was just like, say, Jesus Christ, for example. Who was he really? It's more like we're idolizing something that wasn't really as crazy as they thought. And I'm not saying that about Jesus. Wow, that was terrible.
Mhm.
That was rough. But you know how like the forefathers, everyone's like George Washington was this great man, and then there's some alternate historians that look and say the person George Washington could have might have never existed. He could just be this like
A
mythical
legend.
legend. Exactly.
Mhm.
So in that same thing, but we're just closer to Helen Keller. So there was probably somebody that said they were Helen Keller. There's definitely somebody going around performing, but the people who were at those performances said like they were kids and they remember Helen Keller like patting her on the head and be like, you're like a cute little kid. Like what? Wait, what? Like just
Yeah.
weird stuff. So we just broke that all down. And it's mostly we just kind of like are really telling a lot of jokes because we're all comedians and we're just like guys crapping on each other. So that's really what that's about. And then also I've been working on this book, and it was pretty much done. And then I went to work at this local car dealership for about a month and a half, and that has come to an end. So I'll have more time to focus on this in the book. So I'm very excited because that I want to try to get it out by May 1st. I think that that's doable. So, and it would be nice
Mayday.
because it's May Day, it's foul purchase, not it's like,
Mhm.
it's formerly the largest holiday on this realm. I want to say like, on Earth because it's or on this hemisphere or whatever, this part of the Earth, because the sun is now after May 1st, we get more sun than we
Yep.
did in the winter. That's all I'll say because I don't want to like trigger anyone who is like trying to believe what this realm is. Anyway, so I don't wanna get into that. But
And so what
yeah.
is your book about?
Well, my book is about me, of course. No, I
Yep.
talk uh I talk about my experience in Marine Corps boot camp. It's really about psychology. So I talk about how my behavior was altered in Marine Corps boot camp and what the sources of that behavioral altering were, like who was telling me what to do what. And then I talk about later going through 9/11 as a 25-year-old adult and just kind of like seeing people's behavior change and how it changed around me. And then later I was able to overcome some addiction in my life. So I talk about the behavior changes I made after that. Like after I had an epiphany and saw that I shouldn't be doing what I was doing as much or what I want to change my ways. And then I had to go through this period where I reconstructed, like, the Phoenix we talked about this podcast.
Mhm.
So I talked about that and how I changed my behavior. And then I talked about 2020 and then how people's behavior changed around me then also and how I changed my behavior and all that stuff. So it's all about everything I noticed wrapped up. And then I talk about the future too, what I see, because I'm a legend. I refer to myself as a legend, which is just, it sounds very egotistical, but all it means, a legend in this context, is if you think of a map, there's a key on the map which is called a legend, and that just points the
Mhm.
way. And so as a legend, I'm somebody who can kind of point the way because my perspective on the world, I've seen some things, read some things, and I have a pattern recognition that I can see. So I'm trying to share what my vision of the future is. And it's actually a happy, very happy, positive vision. So I recommend, if you're listening to this, go to shadowworked.com. Shadow, the word shadow, then worked, worked.com. And you can read the first 2 chapters right now if you give me your email. And then I will email you when the book's out. And I promise not to spam you too much. So what have you been up to, Ashley?
Well, I can say that I read your book or the different drafts that you sent me. And I can say I'm just really impressed. Brandon was able to be very, I feel, vulnerable and take ownership of, and I think that's hard for a lot of people, of like things in your past, to be very reflective and kind of open-minded and be like, this is what happened. And and just kind of without having a set opinion on it. So many times I feel like people come at something and like it's so one-sided. And I really appreciated that it wasn't like that. And it made me think about I wasn't in the Marines, obviously, but it made me think about situations in my life and how it affected me and how it changed who I am. My athletic
Yeah,
background.
just so people know, Ashley was a college level swimmer, Division 1 athlete. So, she held records for a while. So
Yeah.
she's at the
Once upon a
elite
time.
level of Marine, like the training I went through was equivalent to what she probably had to endure mentally and physically. So yeah. I mean, she
But
was probably getting shot at, but
right.
almost.
But I think about that and it really made me think like, okay, how did that impact me as a person and how does that impact like my views on things? Because I think sometimes you get so stuck in your own little box. And I really appreciate that you were able to kind of break out of your own box and be very like open-minded and just not take one perspective. So it's definitely worth a read. And I am so interested in what your next book is going to be. I told you I literally could sit and listen to you talk about being in the Marines for hours because I know you and I'm just always like so dumbfounded like you did that for years. Like that's not the Brandon I know. So
Well,
like,
I've been lucky. I tell people I'm like the ADD Forrest Gump. Like, instead of like being whatever he had, I'm not going to, whatever issue he was. I won't
yes,
say any words to trigger. We're trying to
Mhm.
keep this anyway. I have I've just been in some weird situations. I met Mike Tyson at a club, shook his hand, talked to him for a while. I met Method Man, hung out with him. And it's like weird stuff, but let's see. I don't know. It'll come to me, but I've just been in these weird situations. Like I got to hang out with Tommy Lee from Motley Crue for a night and drive him around because I was working at a club and they needed somebody. And I've always been this person who I mean, when I was younger, it was different, but as I got older, I could just kind of hang out with anybody and just look at them as a person and not, like try to worship them. And it helped me other ways too, because other people I've worked with, even in the DJ world, some people that I work with that have a lot of money and they're very famous in that world, I'm able to just hang out with them as a friend and, give them shit and give them advice and like, because I don't want anything from them. I just want to hang out with
Mhm.
them. You know what I'm saying? It's nice that they have money and sometimes I don't always, and they might buy me something to eat. That's cool. Like, or when I'm hanging out with those people who are at the casino, I get everything paid for because it's free. But it's not about that really. It's just about that I'm able to see them as a person and not like as a commodity. So like since I have that skill about me, it's led me to some crazy situations. And even in the Marines, like I've had crazy conversations with people that are like outside my rank or whatever, like
Mhm.
it's just people have always that's always happened to me. So I'm interested, or I'm very excited to write about those experiences, because I feel that it would be interesting because I've
Well, and
had a
everyone has
crazy one.
their own like life that they're living, and
Yeah.
your life is so different than mine. And I always love connecting with people that have had so many different experiences, um, because those are experiences I have not had, and at this juncture will never have. Because I can tell you right now, I will never be in the Marines
Mm.
for um, okay, so what have I been doing? Obviously, I talked about my move. I was let go from the museum I worked at. And just to be
Much
clear,
to their chagrin.
yeah, just to be clear, this was not a furlough. This was a termination. And
Oh, you're so
say,
lucky.
I don't want to make it seem like I personally don't think I did anything wrong there or whatever, but obviously they're still not even open. So
Just
it's a
remain in honor.
nonprofit.
That's all. Listen, everybody, she's not making any claims. This is a comedy podcast.
Yes, they're a nonprofit. They're hemorrhaging money, and so
Allegedly, everybody. Could it be?
sure.
Trust me.
Yes, allegedly they are. I don't have
This
their
is,
financial
could it
records.
be? Yeah, exactly. Could it be? See, this is the thing, Ashley. I've learned. So if you just remain in honor, this is the whole Christ consciousness. Jesus Christ, if you read everything, he never was really making claims, specifically, especially about like, the Roman government or anything. He was just kind of out there, just putting it out there like, hey, could it be? What if? What do you guys think? So if you do that, oh man, it's great. And it's just a good practice to get in overall, because even with people, I've noticed that you're never really see, sometimes when you're interacting with people, they're taking your words a little differently. And if that happens, but you remained in honor and you knew you remained in honor the whole time. So if you were talking to somebody, like for example, say you sell some, yeah, like I'm selling speakers on Facebook, right? My old DJ
Mm-hmm.
speakers. I'm going to tell the guy, listen, the last time I used them was 4 years ago and they worked great. I'm not sure how they work now. Let's test them. And I'll just keep saying to him, or I could say, hey man, these things work great. Don't even worry about it. Just buy them. Now he could be hearing in his head, I'm saying that, but as long as I know that I said, hey, last time I tested them and they work great, then I know no matter what happens or how he interprets it, I'm good. And I remain, in natural law, according to the golden rule, all that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's, it's good to come at it from that angle. Anyway, I'm getting us off that
Okay.
topic.
And I agree. And so after that was in August. Not gonna lie, I took a kick-ass trip to Vegas and living my best life, or trying to, on a budget, and then made the decision to move.
Legendary.
Yeah, but since then, I feel like I could do a whole podcast on my cross country trip, because I stopped in a whole bunch of places. Sedona is so magical, and it's apparently it's so spiritual. There are so many places to go to really reconnect. And then I one of the places we stopped was New Orleans, and I got a tarot reading there, which
That's
is so,
awesome.
yeah, it was so, I've never been to New Orleans, so I don't know what it is like pre, potentially post pandemic, but I can tell you that there was literally no one there. And by that I mean, like, I walked on the street, there were no cars, there were no people, like this handful of people, and that's it. So there's no wait in anything. You're not going through throngs of drunken like co-eds. It was not that at all. And so it was just definitely an opportunity to, like, it it felt like a ghost town. And I mean that in the sense of there's no people, but also the way everything looked. And so I got, a tarot reading there, and then came here to North Carolina. Since then, I've been out to LA 2 other times. I've connected with a medium who literally changed my life, and gave me so much perspective and helped me really kind of get over some of the issues I feel like I've had. Upcoming for me is I've launched a new business, so I'm trying to get kind of some feet on the ground there. I'm going to be
How do people find that business?
Yes, you can find it on Instagram. Thank you, Brandon. It's called Aptly Unique. Very kind of reminiscent or reflective of my name, but I didn't want to use my last name because no one knows how to say it, and a lot of times people are like, "What is that?" So, we'll obviously tag it with
And
the
how do you
Terrible
spell it? How do you
Podcast.
say it one more time?
It's Aptly Unique, APTLY, and then Unique, UNIQUE.
All right.
Um, and and hopefully getting that up and running off the ground. And at this point, trying to figure out what I'm doing for the summer. I see myself back in California, hopefully with something to kind of provide some kind of income. Um, Nothing against North Carolina, but it's a great opportunity for me to explore other places. And this place I have explored, and I realize this is not my landing place.
Yeah.
So.
And my plans for the spring and summer to try to convince Ashley to go to New Hampshire for the spring and summer, so I could we could build a fucking new town and then she could leave for the winter. But yeah, we all have our goals. Anyway,
I'll be like a bird, one of those migratory birds.
dude,
I
that's the
can tell you.
thing. If you
I
get
can
me
tell
up there and started and I'm with you, and then you're just like, all right, I'm gonna leave, and be like, all right, everyone, he's just gonna take out whatever. Anyway, go ahead. I know people that
we could definitely make that work, for
yeah.
sure. And as long as Giz can go,
Oh
because
yeah.
she goes everywhere. She's a little world traveler.
You
She's
think
just
kids would like chickens?
oh my gosh, I was at this place called Pioneer Town in near Joshua Tree in California, and there were chickens, and she's just confused. She was like very confused. Like, I want to play with you. She would never like try to, I think, kill them. I mean, I don't know, but she's never had the experience to be able to do that. But
No, dogs are usually
she
fine with chickens.
she was just so like, what is this thing? They're like making this weird noise, and she just like really badly wanted to like go over and like smell them. We also found a hamster on like the ground, not there, somewhere else, but she like didn't know how to respond to the hamster either. Like, what is this thing? She always uses her paw to like hit at it, and I'm like, Gizzy, you could scratch it, and it's like a little tiny thing. She would have spent all day with that hamster. So I think she'll be fine. Now,
Awesome.
if you said cows, I can tell you she is terrified of bigger animals like that. Cows, horses, um,
What about goats?
loves their smell, wants to live in that stench, but actually seeing them, goats, I don't know actually. I was supposed to go and see goats this past weekend, and I really would have liked to seen her interact with them, to see how she would be, but it was pouring rain here as it does a lot, so
Hmm.
we could not go.
I
But I
think
think
another key. Go ahead. Go ahead.
she'd be so cute with them. I think she'd
Yeah,
be so, look, there she is,
there she is. Hi, Giz.
living her best life.
She's so cute. Yeah, I think especially if she had an interaction with other dogs too, in regards to like, animals, she'd probably be all right. I bet if there's a couple of bigger dogs around and like a horse and then she was around, she'd probably feel a little more comfortable.
She loves big dogs because she thinks
Yeah,
that's what she is.
that's what I'm saying. So yeah, that's
So
cool.
um so yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing. Um I'm excited for the months ahead. Things have been slowly, I feel like, picking up, and I've been feeling better. Um so now that we've done our updates, what we decided we want to talk about for this next part of the podcast is, if you've listened to our podcast, the very first episode, or honestly even at like the year mark, we had picked a card that we thought was reminiscent of like our location in life and something we thought we really connected to. Um, the first card I picked, our very first episode, was the Star. And how fucking cocky was that? Like, I'm the star. And then we redid that same idea. I think it was like 6 months in, at the start of 2019. And the card I picked, which now I look at it and I'm like, I clearly had some kind of intuition and some kind of connect, was the Emperor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then I look at what happened in 2019 and how my life was, and I'm like, I'm glad I picked that card. I feel like I knew somehow I needed to have that strength, and that kind of power. So those were my two cards. Brandon, do you remember your two?
I remember the fool that I picked in the first
Hmm.
episode.
No, that was not your first one. The
Oh, the
first one
hermit.
was the Hermit.
The
Yes.
hermit. Okay. All right. And then did I pick the fool after that? Is that what it
Yes, you
was?
did. Hmm.
Okay. All right. There we go. Yeah. And it's crazy because I feel now the hermit means a lot more to me, and I still identify heavily with the hermit because I feel like just because he's on the mountaintop,
Hmm.
that's just part of the journey. Because sometimes you're up on the top of the mountain, and sometimes you're in that valley. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with
Hmm.
me. And sometimes that's the case, man. And when that's the case, it's more like the fool. I embody the fool because I feel like the fool can adapt to any situation. And I kind of like that interpretation. There's this interpretation out there that says that the fool is kind of somebody who can go along the whole journey of the major arcana, starting with the magician going up and then going
Hmm.
backwards too. Because sometimes you take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it's okay. Like the Tao verse we read, and just like the Tao embodies, everything's perfect. It happens for a reason. It's okay. You go forward, you go back. So I still heavily identify with the fool and the hermit, but now I think I'm going to pick a card that's way away from that, because those are like first 9 cards, right? I'm going to go with the moon now because,
Ooh, okay.
ooh, right? Because these
Hmm.
days, for me, I feel like in my past, some of the issues that I had intimacy issues, and it was with the feminine. And I feel like I have a very strong energy, connection with the feminine energy inside me, because as I'm a male, but then fractally, I have male and feminine and masculine energies inside me in like right brain, left brain. So I feel like I'm very heavy with the feminine, and I can relate to the female, and I use the moon to do that, and I'm doing it more in a positive way these days as opposed to my former behavior, which was more negative. And again, it's not coming from a place of judgment, because I feel like you have to sometimes engage in these behaviors and get sick of it to realize that's not the way. Sometimes you have to butt up against the side of the wall a million times if you're like, no, I got to go this way.
Mhm.
And you learn
Mhm.
every time. So, and that's really what this realm is about, I feel. That's why it's not really about judgment. So, again, coming back to the moon, I had these crazy experiences. The last full moon that we just experienced a couple weeks ago, I had 5 really good friends reach out to me. You were one of them, female
Mhm.
friends. And, reaching out, kind of like in a moment of needing someone to talk to, like, oh, look at all this shit that's going on, or just needing a laugh and all this stuff.
And can
And
I just interject that
yeah,
on the full moon, when Brandon said that he and I talked, it was like 2 in the morning or like 3 in the morning. Do you remember that? I like sent you a
yeah.
text and
Hmm.
then called you.
Yeah, I was
So we were
laying
on the
on the
phone.
floor.
We were on
It
the
was
phone for like
great.
an hour and a half. It was like the middle of the night. Okay, sorry. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, it's okay. And that's what happened to me. And, I there was people all over the world. I talked to somebody in Turkey, somebody that was like in Arizona, a friend in Australia. And so this new moon, which was this past weekend, last night, I had like 4 or 5 of the same people reach out to me. There might even be 6 now that I'm thinking about it. Wow, my friend in Australia, I totally didn't think about her, but I reached out to a couple messages this weekend with her. But yeah, it's funny because I don't talk to some people on a regular basis, and now it seems like it's lining up with the moon.
Mhm.
So because of that, I'm going to take that. This is another way we can transition, right? So you can look at this as something that's magical and mystical, and there's like some force behind it, and it's like, wow, what is it, right? Or you could just say, listen, it was a synchronicity, because that's the way this universe works. Everything happens for a reason. So the moon seems to be calling to me for some reason. It's coming back. So let me look at the moon card and what can I get from it?
Mhm.
And then I can use it as a mirror to improve my behavior and myself in a look at the world in a better way. And then when you look at the moon card, there's these creatures, they're like the animalistic creature, but they're raising up, they're looking up to this other energy, and they're trying to give reverence to it. But since they're lower animals, they're not like humans in understanding. I mean, I don't mean like an
Mhm.
importance in the universe. I just mean in an understanding. The way that they show reverence is to just either climb out of the water and look, or howl at the moon, to just give that respect. And then we as humans, how can we do that? How can we give respect to that sacred feminine energy? Well, we don't have to howl at the moon. Maybe we could call our mom, or maybe, maybe we could create something. We'll go out and paint something. You can go out and build something, write a story. So maybe this is just a calling for me to get back to my book and finish the book, because it has a lot to do with that energy inside me and its expression to the world, which I feel is really important, because wisdom isn't just knowledge. Wisdom is embodying knowledge, taking it in, gaining an understanding on your own, not what somebody else or something else told you, but actually it makes sense in your own, and then expressing what you've learned. That's the wisdom expression. So that's what I take out of it.
But you know what I love about what you just said? So now I'm just going to say, like, I love the cyclical nature of the moon as a Cancer. That's our ruling planet.
Right.
So I love that. I also love the idea of
Right.
this like rebirth kind of growth period, and then just literally like going up and down a mountain, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, traveling through the tarot, just like the Fool. Um, I think that creativity, that more like feminine kind of, those feminine attributes of being creative and doing something in the arts, as opposed to like the logical kind of like mathematical side, which would be more masculine. I think that the feminine side is a great way to really kind of find out who you are, and I think a lot of people, I'm looking at the past year and people having to stay inside or not going out or not venturing out. There's got to be a lot of feelings there, and there's got to be a lot of probably anxiety or nervousness of how things are moving in the world. And I think that art and creativity is a great way of expressing that and releasing it and letting it go. And then what a gift it is for the rest of the world when you're putting something creative and artistic out there, because someone can see that, look at it, read it, learn from it, like absorb that, and then that could change their path. And nothing against that more logical structural side, but I can't imagine that a majority of the population is going to say, you know what got me through that pandemic? Doing my times tables. Like, no, people relate to art on a spiritual level. And I think that you're so right that maybe it is your book. But I've told you before, I had that dream about you with your art. So I think you should get back to that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Trust me. That's the new thing. And then now that you did the aptly unique, maybe you can start promoting my art and we could start selling it or something, because that'll
And I,
motivate me even more.
and I told Brandon I had a dream about him a few weeks ago, and I am someone that very much believes that my dreams are a reflection of something that's in my head that I think I should be doing. And it's sometimes hard to remember exactly. That's why I try to, as soon as I get up, be like, what did I just, and I've been having some crazy ass dreams recently. But I was at a reading for his book, and he had all on the walls behind him, and it was like this huge conference room or like ballroom, and on the walls behind him was all of his art that he was also selling. And in true Brandon fashion, there was no price tag. It was like, pay what you can. But it was like all different art. And and you had like a email me or contact me here, like your phone number or an email address, so that you could like talk to them about which piece they wanted and how much they'd be willing to give you for it or whatever. And yes, I would love to help you out and do that, because I love your perspective on your art interpretation of all the different cards.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of that. And somebody recently asked me if I've created my own deck. And I was gonna
Yes,
say
you
that to you.
should.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do this live on air. Well, not live, but I'm gonna say, why don't me and you, we should work together, create our own deck. We'll call it the terrible deck.
Yes, I love that.
It'll be terrible.
Well, I think that's like such a perfect card, and I have to tell you, I applaud you, which I also told you before when I was proofreading your book. Is a lot of times I think men are so scared of identifying themselves in like a feminine way. There's like that macho kind of attitude, and what they're missing is that, like, that makes you a very well-rounded, developed human being.
Yeah, I'll say it this way. There's a lot of men who are musicians, and as a musician, nobody kind of like looks down on them in this society, I'll just say, where they might, somebody who's like a man who's like an artist, right? They're like, wow, he's a macho man, but yeah, he's singing and he's up there dancing. He's a little
Yep.
fruit. Just kidding, guys. Listen, he's expressing his feminine
Hmm.
side, so I think that's great. And that's what I did with comedy. And but in comedy it was very logical, so that's a little different. When you're singing, you're really escaping, you're letting go in a much different way. When you're creating art, you're really letting go. So yeah, I feel like that's great that you're going to help me, so I'm very excited. Yes. I forgot what I was going to say, so I just said that anyway. But yeah, thank you, that's awesome. And I really appreciate that, because it motivates me, because I had that similar view. I was thinking of like having a book opening or a book signing party where I could even, yeah, I could definitely sell art, and then I can even perform. I could do like not just comedy, but there's in the world of comedy, you have like a what's called like a one man show or whatever, or people get
Hmm.
up and they just kind of they'll talk, and it's more it's borderline like TED Talk and a comedy show. It's like mixed in one. So I think I can have people open for me, because I know several comedians that I really like, and it'll also share the journey of my life because of the comedy that they say and like my friendship with them. And then I can get
Hmm.
up at the end and say some words and talk and tell some jokes and stuff, and then sign my book. And I'd love to do that as a live event, and I'm sure I could find a place to do that. Like I could even do that with the Bears now, with all these Owen Benjamin people. And shout out to anyone who's listening that I found. There's this comedian Owen Benjamin. He has a really good uh following supporters called Bears, and they're awesome. So shout out everybody. I'm gonna make Ashley a bear soon. Don't worry, guys.
And you know what else I also love about you, Brandon, is like, I told you this idea of like, this is what I wanted to do for this episode, kind of pick a card, and you always pick something that is very unexpected. I feel like when the first episode, when you picked the Hermit,
Hang on
I was
really
like,
quick. I just want to say it's not that it's unexpected, Ashley. It's just that you're underestimating me to your own detriment, though. So it's okay. I'm not taking offense. It's to your own detriment.
but it's like it's very, very random, like not very few
No,
people
I
can
know
see
what you mean. I'm
guess
just
it,
busting your balls.
you know?
I'm breaking your ovaries.
And like what I guess I guess if I really thought about the first episode, I would have picked the Hermit for you because I thought that was perfect. But after that, like when you were like, I'm gonna choose something that like towards the end, I was like, I don't even know what you're gonna pick. I really had no idea. I would never have thought the moon, I think.
I didn't know till I was just shuffling through the deck and I was frantically, as you were saying the card, I'm like, shit. And I was like going through the deck and it hit me. And then all those synchronicities hit me and I wanted to talk about them
Mhm.
anyway. And I'm like, yeah, this is it. Because prior to that full moon, I also wanted to add in, and not to cut you off, but that I had allegedly, could it be that I found something in my freezer, imbibed it on a full moon? And I feel like I had a conversation with the moon. This was like earlier in the year. So
Yes,
all
you
these
texted me about
synchronicities,
it.
yeah, all these synchronicities lining up. So I felt
Mhm.
like, yeah, I should talk about that. 2021 is about that for me. And also to say what you said, the moon is a rock in the sky, or some people believe it's just a luminary that's up there. It's a light to guide us. I think that it does represent, because in astrology, it represents the side of you that you don't show unless you're being intimate with somebody. So it's all about your own inner thoughts, how you feel about a situation. Whereas we talked about this before, the sun is kind of the
Mhm.
part of you that you put out to the world. That also has to do with your ascendant too, but people understand that know. But in the astrology that you're given in the newspaper, the sun is the aspect of yourself that people see, that you represent and put out to the world. It's kind of the person you feel you have to be when you're around people, if that makes sense to anybody. You're sometimes around people and you're like, they get into this thing. That's more about the sun sign. The moon sign is when you're alone, or when you're with your lover or with your really good friend and you're like, talking about how you feel about things. That's the moon. And this, I think, could actually uh bring me to something I wanted to touch on briefly, which is there's a lot of people who feel that tarot or astrology, like it kind of gets a bad name. And I totally get that. And what I want to say about that is, if you're a Christian and you're listening to this, I actually identify as an esoteric Christian because I'm on the path of Christ. And if you're a Christian and you've come across somebody who also says they're a Christian and is saying that tarot is evil and astrology is evil, I just want you to know that they're right. Okay. They're right and you're right to think that. And it's also not evil. And what I mean is, it just depends. In my point of view, and this is all my opinion, obviously, I feel that depending on your own personal point of view, how you view the world, and the work you've done, I guess, on yourself, or how you feel about things, if you do use tools such as the tarot and astrology, it could go bad for you, and they could have outcomes that would be quote unquote like, this is evil, or there's an evil thing. And it's because sometimes just in life, like if you're trying to give somebody advice, they could take pieces of that advice and use it, like they only hear what they want to hear and then
Right.
go and do it anyway. So it's the same thing can happen with the tarot. And that's the warning that I tell people. So I'm always saying, learn about yourself. And then to bring it back, I use tools as the tarot and astrology to gain better insight about myself, not to learn about the future, what's going to happen, or if I'm going to fall in love. I just do it to say, where am I now? I get up in the morning, I don't have a normal 9 to 5 job. So sometimes I'll get up and I'll be like, what am I going to do today? And I'll like start spiraling about things like, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. So I'll be like, calm down, take a couple deep breaths and look at a tarot card and be like, all right, what can I do? I'll plot it out. And that's all. You know what I'm saying? It's not
Mhm.
like, so yes, they can be evil. And yes, some people have written about them that might be called evil, and certain decks might be inverted or called evil. But in my own view, it's just like a tool, like a hammer or like a gun. It depends on the person who's using it and wielding it, and what are they doing it for and why. That's a lot more. And then if you can figure that out and you get to that point, then we can have a discussion further about the symbols and if they're evil and all that stuff. I'm open to it, but I still feel like it's just a tool.
Yes.
It could be used either way. And I just wanted to get that out there because I hope there's a lot of Christians watching, because I love Christians because we have so much in common, because I am a Christian. I don't have my cross on right now, but I feel Jesus's message was very important. And I had a
Mm-hmm.
conversation with a Muslim who's a devout Muslim who started Ramadan today. And I told him I would do it with him. So I'm going to try to. My,
Whoa.
what I'm going to do is, my thing I told him is, just with food, I'm going to try to not eat during sunup unless it's like water or like juices. Like, I'm allowed to juice things only because this was like a last minute thing. I didn't really prepare. So I'm going to do like a juice cleanse during the day. And then at night
Mm-hmm.
I'll eat. I'm going to see how far I can make it, because I normally don't eat till dinner time anyway. So it's not much of a stretch, but I do snack. So I'm going to juice. But anyway, I spoke with this Muslim 20-year-old guy from Jordan. He is amazing. One of my new friends. I met him on Instagram. He's from Stanford. And he was telling me that what according to the Quran, not what you hear like on the news and what they tell you about Muslims, but according to the Quran, and if you're a true Muslim, that they believe if somebody's on the path of Christ, if they follow Christ's path, that they will go to heaven. They're like, we
Mm-hmm.
have no beef with those people. Those are our brothers. And I got to see him tell that to a born again Christian who was like 58-year-old white guy. And this is some Jordanian guy. And the 50-year-old white guy was like previously used to believe that all Muslims were evil, and all this stuff. And he didn't believe that at this point, but he still didn't know that fact. And he learned that and his jaw dropped. He was like almost ready to cry. So it's just amazing that
Mm.
it's like, if you're just on this path, that's all that matters. So that's the perspective I come from, just so people know. And then also, my perspective is I'm goofy and funny. So I like to make a lot of jokes. That's why this is called
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there.
I can say, going off of what you said about the sun and the moon sign, I have, you know, I'm one of those. I always say to my family, we have a weekly Zoom call. I'm always like, Big Brother's always listening. But since you sent me the link to find out like my rising sign, like to figure all that kind of stuff out, sun sign, moon sign, I have been seeing a lot more people kind of asking about what those things mean in some of the various groups I'm a part of, like on Facebook and stuff like that. So I think it's interesting that now people are realizing it's not just this one dimensional, this is, you're a Cancer, you're only a Cancer, you have to have this. Because a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that's who, like, I don't feel like any kind of attachment to that, because I don't feel like that's who I am. And I think it's nice to be able to say, like, well, there's all these other dimensions to you, right?
Mm.
Um,
And I really quickly, there's a reason for that. Like, I'll put it this way: if you're a Christian and you're listening to this, like, I grew up a Catholic, and now
Ditto.
I don't agree with what the Catholic Church says, but I love the Bible. And so what I'll say is, so if you're somebody who grew up as a Catholic but don't agree with it, but now you're onto some other form of Christianity, think about all the Catholic people who use the same words that you do,
Mm-hmm.
and they're using in a way that kind of makes you like, oh, I wish, they're ruining it. That's how I feel when people in the new age, quote unquote, new age movement use these terms that I like to use, because I'm not using them in a new age way. I feel like new age is just the other flip side of, not everyone in the new age, but like a lot of the tenets. It's just the flip side of like the Catholic religion's another system of control, but that's something else to get into. But the concepts they talk about are true.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of times you're getting half truths. So when I also speak about these content, the content that they're speaking of, when I talk about it, it will get misconstrued and people will think I'm coming from the same new age place, or it's like, no, no, no. Just like you as a Christian hate when people take your terms and misuse them. That's what's going on with me. So, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
And it's not an accident. I feel like if you run a system of control like the Catholic Church, and not anybody in the church, I'm talking about like the people who created it, the Pope, the Romans back in the
Yep.
day, it was better for them to demonize these systems of divination, because people were able to come to their own conclusion about things and live their life based on their own intuition, and they didn't need to look to a king or a pope. And you can't make good slaves that way. So
Mm-hmm. All right. So I feel like we can move on to my card.
yeah,
But before I tell you what my card is, the one that I picked, I want you to guess which card you think I'm gonna pick.
the Tower.
Ooh. um, not quite. Um,
It just popped in my head, so I said it. Maybe that's just what I see for you. No, I
Maybe
feel like that was your card. So I'll just say I feel like that was your card 2020 and coming into
yes,
2021. That was your card.
yes.
So yeah. Oh, so give me another stab. Give me another stab. Hang on.
Okay.
I'd say the sun.
I'm actually choosing death.
Oh, I was closer with the tower then. All right, all right.
And here's why. Um
Duck. No, I'm just kidding.
I know. When I was doing a reading for a friend of mine and the death card came up in her reading, and I feel like so many people
Me
freak out when
too.
they see that. And I look at what I'm trying to do. Like I just said, I told everyone I'm starting this new business venture. It's like shedding the old life I had and kind of being reborn or regrowing or just becoming into this. I'm going into this new phase of my life. And so death doesn't have to be bad, just like the phase of the moon. The new moon, people are like, it's gone, but give it 2 weeks, it's going to come back. And it's just part of the cycle of life. So I feel like where I am right now, I'm kind of shedding that skin. Oh, you talk about your snake in your book. I was like, why am I keep saying shedding the skin? Where is that coming from? It's from your book. Um
Spoiler alert. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, talk about it. Please talk about me in my book. Yes, talk about it.
Spoiler alert, snake shed their skin. But I feel like that's kind of where I'm at.
You just
Like
ruined it for all these people who just bought a snake. It sheds? What do you mean? I didn't know.
I feel like that's kind of where I'm at, trying to get rid of the stuff that I felt like was holding me back. And the death card, he's like on this horse and it looks almost like he's going into battle. And I feel like I'm right now like fighting for the life that I want. Fighting for the life that I want, but I could not have gotten there 6 months ago. I could not have been in the same position. I needed to go through everything I had gone through to be able to be like, no, this is my new path. This is the
Well, you
direction
did
I'm
get
going
there
in.
by going through that. That's
Right.
just the muck and the mire that you went through, but you still see some people are still stuck there. So that's why I said you're
And
killing it. That's why when I reached out to you and I'm like, you're fucking killing it, because I saw you going through that swamp, but I couldn't, there's nothing I could do. My boat couldn't get over there, but I was just like,
right.
dude, you're killing. All I could do is like, you're killing it. And that's all I needed. That's it. You didn't
And
need
and
my
then
boat.
you look
Because if I brought my
right.
boat over
Well,
there, you'd be a weaker person for it. You get it? And I know you know that. I'm just for the
yes.
people who are listening. Yeah. So listen, everybody, you can't
And,
you can't help everybody. You can't save people. All you could do, I found, and just me even saying this, I shouldn't even be saying this, but I found a secret, which is I could just work on myself, make myself better, and kind of be there to listen to people, just
mhm.
witness them. They don't need answers. They just need a lot of times someone to validate them, like Ashley's saying, listen, I don't know. I think I should move to North Carolina. I'm like, fucking do it, dude. And now she's like, I don't know if North Carolina was the right move. And I said to her, well, you know what? The only way you would have known it was by fucking going there. And if you didn't go there,
Yep.
you'd wonder your whole life. So
Yep.
guess what? You went there and it wasn't that bad. You have all your toes and your fingers and your arms so far. All right, there
Mhm.
you go. You're good. You still got your little gizmo.
I do. She's
Well,
right here in my lap.
what more do you want? You're just getting greedy now if you want more than that. Come on.
And so if I'm looking at this card, right, the death figure is also like clothed in this armor. So I feel like I needed to go through everything to have this protective covering to be like, I know right now how to get where I want to go, and I'm not this like easily wounded, broken person that I feel like I was before. And what I really love about the card is, you see the death figures on this white horse and it's over like what looks like the king. And like I was talking about earlier, kind of my old life of being just kind of having a lot of stuff and I hate using the word materialistic because I feel like there is such a negative connotation, but I feel like that's part of living in this capitalist country. It's like that's everyone wants more, 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 more. And I love that the figure on the horse is standing over what looks like the king, which is just laying there. Like I've left that part of my life. And in the background you see the sun and the two stone towers, like the moon card of like there is that light. I do know where I'm going. I am following this path. And he doesn't even have any kind of like weaponry. He's holding this like little flag in his little skeleton hand, and it's just like I'm good. Like I have everything I need.
You
And
know,
I'd
it's
like to think that Giz is my little horse.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. You know, it's crazy synchronicity. We both picked the same card, just a different perspective. I'm looking at the moon and I'm way over that side of the it's the
Yep.
same landscape.
Yes, absolutely. And so, for me, I just like when I said that to you, like I'm gonna pick a card, like let's pick a card or whatever. I was going back and forth about what card I thought I should pick. And I think another card that was very indicative of the last like year for me would probably be the devil, of like me being voluntarily chained to something and then
That's
being
one
like,
thing really quickly, just so people know the devil card. This is something that was pointed out to me and I pointed out to Ashley. If you look at the devil card, there's two figures, a male and a female, standing in front of the devil, and they have chains around their neck. And when you first look at it, it looks like they're slaves. But when you
mm-hmm,
really look at it, you see that the chains are very loose and they're kind of standing there in a manner as to say, what am I going to do? You know, I got this addiction. I got to smoke cigarettes or whatever it is. You know, I got to bang all these chicks, allegedly. So,
uh-huh.
that's what she's talking about. But continue, Ashley. I love it. So that's what she means, everybody. You know, she saw that the
Yes,
chains were set by herself lightly upon herself, like she was enslaving herself to this. The devil, you can't blame the devil. He's just providing a service, man.
right.
You want to go out and have a good time and, like I'm going, Jackson, going and ruin your health. If you want to go ruin your health, it's fine. You can do it. But guess what? Don't blame the devil. He's just providing the service. Because if he wasn't there, you wouldn't have free will, everybody.
And I look at that card, um and I think the thing that was chaining me was just fear. Like I was so scared of going outside of the path that I had chosen, you know, chosen to be married, chosen to work in this field, chosen to live in this area. Like it just felt like every decision I couldn't get out of that. I had to stay on it. And when I realized like, no, I don't. I think one of the first posts I put on my business Instagram was something I say to myself on the regular. I say, if not now, when? And as sucky as the past year was for a lot of people, and like I said, I lost my job or whatever, it literally gave me the chance to be like, I don't have to be stuck in this on this one path. I could do literally anything I wanted to, within reason. Like I'm not going to become an astronaut because I don't want to, and I get
The space is
motion sick.
fake.
But like, I could do, there's so many things I could do. And it was just a chance for me to take off that chain of fear and like have a jumping off point and being like, it's fine. I'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Cause I remember before all this is what you wanted to do. And we talked about it a bunch. And I was like, dude, you'd be great. You're fine. And you're like, you still weren't sure. But then
Mm-hmm.
it's like this came along and it was a gift. It broke that shell, that chains were broken for you. There was nothing you could do. But see that,
Right.
but there was you had the choice because you could have went back to another job like that was very comfortable but unfulfilling, sustaining but unfulfilling. It's all about balance. And I'm not telling people that they can't get a job for a company or corporation. If you find that balance and it works for you, do it, man.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, I feel, yeah, obviously you're where you want to be. So this is great.
And it's just so, again, I think there's this misconception about like death and the ending of things of like, well, it'll never be better. But I feel so much more focused and motivated. And things, working for a company, you don't normally get the final say if you're not the CEO. And you know what I found? I like having the final say.
Especially when you know
So,
you're right. When you know you're right,
yes.
it's good to consult with other people, but when you know you're right about something sometimes and you have to not go against that, that's soul crushing, in my opinion.
Yes.
Could it be?
It is. It is, and it's I never want to be the person that says I told you so,
Yeah,
because I
that's the
think
other
that
part about it. Yep.
right. But how do you not feel that when you know that they know that you were right?
You know that I know that you know. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, man. I know. I know. I've been in that situation several times. So, yeah. But again, that's an aspect we can work on ourselves. And sometimes it's funny because, like you said, you don't even want to say I told you so, but then people feel weird about it and then they come to you and it's just like, nah, man, it's cool. I was just, now listen, just
Mhm.
I'll tell people, just remember this for next time that
Yep.
I tell you that I'm really sure about something, because and the thing is, I tell people, I understand that if you don't really know me that well and I say I'm sure about something, that I understand a lot of people are sure and they act like it and they'll swear on Bibles. But when I tell you I'm very sure about something, I'm not just bullshitting, because I feel bad. I wouldn't say that. I don't say that very often unless I'm like
Mm-hmm.
dead on because of, past reasons or whatever. But anyway, yeah, you get it.
But when you're saying that, there's no pride associated with it. Of like, I always need to be right. I always am sure of this. I can admit the
I
only
don't
thing
want to be right sometimes.
the only thing I know 100% that I'm sure of is that I don't know everything. But when I do know something, like, I want you to trust that I do know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, yep,
And
yep.
so that's my thoughts here on the death card and why I think that's reflective of where I am. And then and I'm not taking it as a negative. I'm honestly taking it as a positive. One of my favorite books is The Very Hungry Caterpillar, because not only do I love to eat, but the little caterpillar is so cute. And at the end, he comes out as a butterfly. Now, what they don't tell you at the end of the book is, I mean, he's going to die pretty quickly after that. But, they'll probably, if it's a girl, lay eggs, and then you have a whole new cycle, right? It's a
And
whole
guess
new
what?
set of,
He gets to fly on his
right.
own. So who cares?
All right.
He
So
gets to
now,
touch the sky. I just want to say something about the king in the death card, because I said the
oh, yeah.
tower, right? The tower jumped
Yes.
out at me. Now, there's a king that's falling out of the tower, and then there's also a dead king laying. So what you can look at is, because the way these cards work, you could take that interpretation as, if you have this fall that's about to happen in the tower,
Mm-hmm.
and you're this king, you're this person who's acting like you know it all, like the Tower of Babel stuff, like you're going to reach God and you're going to rival God or whatever the creative force is, right? And then that lightning bolt comes down and says nope, and then you get thrown and you're laying dead. You already know before it happens that it's going to happen. There's a part of you that knows you're already dead, but you're still persisting on. So the death card comes in, and sometimes you just don't know it and you're still going on. It's like somebody who gets it's like somebody who's dead but they don't know it yet, and they're just still going, like the coyote
Mm-hmm.
who's running over the side of the cliff and he doesn't know he's fallen yet. He's chasing a roadrunner who can fly,
Yep.
and and he thinks he can fly, but he's not ready yet, so he's running over that precipice and he hasn't looked down yet. And that's where I feel that's what the death card symbolizes too, and it's that whole thing. And that's where you were a lot in 2020. You already knew it was all dead. In
Mm-hmm.
2019, you knew, you were just
Mm-hmm.
going through the motions, and now it's just you were given this amazing gift of the pandemic. And that's also something I want to say too, because this word pandemic, I feel, is kind of like a spell, because words are spells, and it's really a shitty representation, because Pan, the god Pan, would be so pissed right now if he was here, if he was a real god. He'd be like, this is the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, like what? That's
Yeah.
how I know the world is inverted. That's how I know the world is inverted, because they call this the pandemic anyway. He's so pissed right now. He's like, I can't even go out past 10 o'clock. What? Anyway, that's my mythological humor.
And I also think that it's a great opportunity. Like, I think that people have used this, should be using this, especially as things start like opening up, to be like, what did I get from the past year? Like, what did I learn about myself? Everyone got something.
I
You
got
know,
AIDS. No.
I got. Brandon, that was one of the first questions I ever asked you.
See, I'm bringing it back. That's a callback for just us.
Yes.
Brandon, do you have AIDS? And remember my answer? I don't know.
Oh my
By the
gosh.
way, still the best answer ever to that question. If anyone ever asked you, do you have AIDS? I don't know. Best, because you're remaining in honor.
But if anyone listening is probably like, how did that even become a conversation? It was just total. Yeah, it was just kind of, I just threw it out there. Anyway, I think that a lot of people maybe realize, one, if you've gotten through it, and
AIDS? No, I'm just kidding.
AIDS or the pandemic, that you're much probably stronger than you thought. I think one thing people have also realized is, good and bad of, you can be alone. But my only worry is, and I feel like there's just more dependence on all of these types of devices because that was the only way people felt like they could interact. But I think it gave people an idea of like, I know definitely from one of my older sisters, like, you don't have to run around and do everything all day, every day. It's okay to just take a minute and
Mm.
just be.
Yeah, I feel like the world was I feel like it was too inverted, and people were just living too well, and they were getting too much. And I'm not saying that we don't deserve it, but what I'm saying is we didn't deserve it because it got taken away and we allowed it to get taken away. But
Mhm.
I feel that as a whole, I'm saying, but I feel like there are people that aren't, and I'm seeing a different thing. So what I'm seeing is, yes, we are going to have to learn from this, but I see like kind of a divide and a split in consciousness, and some people are seeing this as the worst thing ever, and they're hiding and they're getting really scared, and some people are seeing this as the best thing ever and they're crushing. And
Mhm.
it's a degree, it's a scale, so there's people all along that, there's people in the middle, whatever, I get it, but there's some people who are really, in a good way, taking advantage of the situation, because since what I see, a lot of people are existing in fear and they don't want to do certain things, and the government's giving out money, there's a lot of different money being given out, so people are taking advantage of that to be alone and to spend time at home, and maybe that's what they need. I'm not here to judge, I'm just saying that's what they're doing. Some people are allowing fear to do that, and maybe it's going to create that cocoon to create the butterfly. That's what I hope, but
Mhm.
maybe not. And then some other people are that butterfly and they're just out there flying, and they don't care that they only have a few days to live, maybe. And I don't mean that in the
Yep.
pandemic. What I mean is I see people who are using their common sense and their logic and looking around and using the own information that they come to, instead of seeing using what they see in the media to base their decisions. And because of that, then they see that they can interact and not put themselves or anyone else in danger, and then also crush, do
Mhm.
really well. So I feel like if you're listening to this, there's no excuse for you not to be on that end. I'm kind of in the middle of that scale, and I'm heading toward the crush scale with this book. I guess I'm just hard on myself because I did write a book in less than 6 months. So I guess I shouldn't be too hard on myself, but um, it's
Not
tough
only
though.
did you write a book, but you have like a million different like podcasts or groups that you're a part of, and you do all these different things. Like, I'm literally like, how do you have? We have the same amount of time in the day, and you're so productive.
I feel that I'm not productive though. It's so funny, as productive. But I know I am. Like, I see the fruits. Like, I see all the stuff I draw, but then I'm like, I don't know. I guess what it is, it's lingering from that puritanistic, because I grew up in New England and I should be hardworking. And my father, he's a great example because his dad died when he was 5 and he had 8 brothers and sisters. He was the second youngest. So went from he went from growing up on the richest street in Milford, right next to where all the lawyers and doctors lived. Then his dad passed away, to them still living there, but being basically in abject poverty and having to rely on neighbors' help. And his mom had, my grandmother had to get a job and work. And the older siblings were already out of the house and didn't, it was
Mhm.
whatever, no judgments. But so I get why he told me to have a job since I was 10 and I had to paper out and all this stuff. And I always had to work hard. And I get why he is hard on me still to this day, because he wants to make sure I don't end up in that situation. And I love him for it.
Mhm.
So that is still something that's an inner voice that I have to deal with. But as I come out of it, I can look back, like I said earlier in the podcast, you look down, and I look down at all the stuff I've done. Like, wow, I've had a website called morelawsmoreproblems.com since 2013. That has now been 8 years, over 8 years. And maybe I only wrote on it once or twice a year here and there. But hey, for 8 years, I've been expressing what I've been seeing in the world. So it's like, wow,
Mhm.
yeah. So, yeah, maybe a lot of people have done more, but there's a lot of people way more that have done less than that. So I guess,
Well, and you're on your own. You're on your own timeline. You're in your own, like,
yeah,
don't measure yourself up against somebody else. There's people that started doing what I'm trying to do years ago,
yeah, I could have
and
never wrote a book in 2013. It was that progressive
yep.
writing a blog, I could have done it quicker if I just focused on that, but all the other things I was doing, and I was maintaining a full DJ career every weekend. I was bringing joy to people, dancing and shit. You know what I mean? So like, yeah,
Mhm.
and sustaining myself and feeding myself that way for a long time. So yeah, it's amazing. So that's why I don't mind. That's another reason why I don't mind crashing here, kind of, and being with my parents and having a little, I guess, less privacy or whatever. But I still get during the day free. So if I'm productive, it's great. But it's like I'll take that because the life I lived before, now I have to endure the sacrifice. But now because of that, I have this perspective on the world where so many people were so wrapped up and busy in their life with their kids and all this stuff. And I get it, but I was able to actually watch the world change close up and document it, you know? So now I can share that with the world and people can trust that. They're like, wow, this dude, this is what he was doing for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years. He wasn't worried about anything else but watching the changes in behavior around
Mm-hmm.
him, you know, like, so yeah, it gives me this credibility. It's crazy. This whole time where I thought I was wasting my time, but I was actually, you know, just sucking up knowledge. But yeah, anyway, enough about me.
Okay, so for the last part of our podcast, we're going to focus on, normally we look at the Thoth deck when we're doing our kind of card examination. So we're going to kind of dive in a little bit more into the creator of that.
Yeah, awesome. I love this part. Now, this goes back to what I was saying before about the tarot. And if you are somebody who's heard that it's evil and stuff, because you heard this figure, Aleister Crowley, and you're going to hear that he's evil. And I'm going to tell you that, yeah, you're right. He probably did some stuff. I don't know. Okay. I'm just going to say this. This is another thing I've started doing in the past year in 2020. I'm only really going to try to focus on what I can prove and know to be true. So if I hear something's going on in the news, unless I know someone that's there, because through my own investigation, I've already proved several news stories were false through, like, you know, things that you would never imagine to be false, but in simple ways, not in ways like everything's orchestrated, just in ways like I saw evidence of a reporter commingling with some police in Australia to like tackle this guy and pull him away from his kids and make it dramatic and then just let him go after and then use it on the news to make it seem like you don't want to go to protests, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
just stuff like that. And so now I like to, in the perspective of history, it's hard because you can't go back. So, for example, the Civil War. I love the Civil War. I've always been enthralled, and my view on it has changed so much, even in the past year. And what I've come to realize is we'll never really know what happened. But if you can get a sense to read a lot of personal accounts and people who've heard stories passed down from their families and all this stuff, and you add it to the mainstream account, and then you look at today, look at what the pandemic is, look at what's going on and what they're saying on the news. Now imagine that's mainstream history. Now look at what you see around you. Those are personal accounts. Use
Mm-hmm.
that same, you know, use that same analogy. Now I go back to the Civil War, and what I've found is that there's likely what was going on was there was a large native population here, right? And I don't feel it was all these savages that they say. I think there might have been some other kind of civilization here that was more advanced, and somehow the Europeans infiltrated it and then it became America or whatever. But there's still pockets of these people, and maybe some of them look like savages, but I feel that's what they became later when they're driven off their land or whatever. And maybe those people also existed. They were the hunter gatherers that were here, but I feel like there was a more advanced society. So I feel like the South was you know, mingling with them very well. And for the North, it wasn't working out because if you're a government, you don't want people who are self-sustainable. We'll just leave it at that. So that war, I think it was more about that. And that wasn't really officially written about, but there are documents of, or documentations of many, they call them tribes, like native tribes being wiped out and stuff. So when you look at it that way, it's hard to say you want to be on the side of the North because they're wiping out slavery. It's like, wait a minute, there's no good sides to that. And then I'll bring it back to
Yep.
Aleister Crowley. He was just a person. And if you can't really get inside the motivations in his head, what he was thinking about when he was writing about, like, if you go and actually read his books and look at what he was doing from an objective standpoint, you might be able to gain something. Now, if you're going to look at his stuff because you want to control people and you want to get over, and you're like, all right, this guy was a magician and he knew how to screw people over, I want to do it. Well, yeah, then he's evil, then you're evil, then that's evil. But if you want to look at his insights to what he gained as somebody who looked at occult principles, and occult principles are mean nothing but just hidden psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Occult just means hidden. Then there might be something to be gained. And in that same way, if he creates a deck, it could be inverted to the world. But as long as you're aware of that, and as long as you know the world is inverted and you understand your position in this universe, it's possible you can gain something out of the insight. Because if he was creating from his conscious, his subconscious mind, he was still a person. He was still connected with God. If he was creating, it was still God's creation.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. The devil is still created by God because he needs to exist in order for you, my friend Christian, my fellow Christian, to have free will. So I'm not saying you should be like the devil and emulate him, but what I'm saying is if there was this guy who created and he had all this knowledge, there could have been something in there that you might be able to glean in your life, or maybe not. I'm not, this isn't like a sales pitch, but what I'm telling people is when somebody labels something evil that you shouldn't look into it,
Yep.
without giving you a reason why, maybe there's a reason that they're not telling you. And maybe they're benefiting and they don't want you to. It could be, or, maybe I'm crazy. But that's just my perspective, and that's how we look at it. So just to further add that to Aleister Crowley, I feel like he was very misunderstood, and there is things to be gained. Even if it's just a lesson you want to learn from it, it's how not to be. That could be something too. It just depends on where you are and where you exist on this realm. I feel this earth, this plane of existence that we're on now, it's like a proving ground. It's a test of free will. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to sit at home all day in the basement and play video games, or are you going to go out and create? Okay, well, if you're going to go out and create, that's great. What are you going to
Do
use to create? Yeah. I'm
do
going
you
a little
know
bit. Go ahead, you go.
do you know anything about why people think he's a bad guy?
Well, the most of it is because he was associated with the Golden Dawn and the tarot and Rider-Waite, and all the people came out of that, and the Theosophy Society, and a lot of
Oh,
that
so it
stuff.
wasn't like something like he wasn't like, murdering people or, a
No, it's more,
pedophile or something like that. It was just it's all because of his beliefs, not because
it's
of acts he committed.
it's more about people he was associated with, and a lot of people think that he was associated with people who were kind of architects of our society, who were like guiding and trying to manipulate and put stuff in there to lead people astray and on the wrong path. So he might have been associated with those people. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're a powerful person and you're somebody who is influential, you don't always get to decide that, and
Uh-huh.
I don't want to like stick up for his actions. He could have been a scumbag. Like, again, I don't know. I didn't meet him. He could have been a total scumbag who ate babies. But what I mean
Mhm.
is, if he wrote this tarot, this art, it still could be from God. It could be, it's still a creation from his innermost being, his interconnection with the creator itself. So whether he wanted to or not, even he could have intentionally been trying to create something to manipulate people, but God works in mysterious ways. So despite that, made a beautiful work of art that some people can use to better their life. That's what I'm saying. Because guess what? It doesn't, even if the devil was like, you make this and he commissioned it, it still exists within the realm of the creator, who is God. So it doesn't matter. That's all. They're just throwing ice cubes at the sun trying to extinguish it. Like, you idiots. Like, they forgive them. They know not what they do. And they still created a beautiful tarot deck, in my opinion, that I like to use. And maybe later on I'll come across some evidence and I won't use it. But for now, this is the point of view I'm
Well,
coming from. That's all.
I think that every human being is flawed, right? No one is perfect.
That's
And
what I'm
so
trying to get at. Yeah. Go
yes.
ahead.
So I think I'm going to be honest, I don't know anything about him as a person or what he did. I enjoy looking at the cards, and I think that anyone who comes up with like a deck, even if we make our own, right? It's going to be our interpretations and our kind of backgrounds going into the creation, the color choice, the figures, the lines, the geometric positioning of things. And so um the people that maybe had a problem with him, would you say that they were more like religiously associated people that were like, he is bringing about this?
Well, no,
I don't.
that's some of it. So there's some of that, and I think there's crossover. So, but there's also people who aren't specifically religious, who would more associate themselves with researchers who've looked into this. And it does seem to be that there are groups of people around the positions of power who write policy. There's these people. If you looked at it in the past, they would be like nobles that were around the kings, but now it's just these people who are powerful that have a lot of money, and they they're on boards such as like the Council of Foreign Relations is one of them. And a lot of people will say it's the Illuminati and it's all this conspiracy stuff, But at the end of the day, it's just these people getting together saying, hey, how could we manage a group of people? What's best for our interests?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to deny that aspect of it. So what they're saying is those people think he's associated with them and with architects of society and kind of like basically engineering society. So that's where their beef is. And as I said, even if that's true, this deck was created for just the innermost society. And then some people will think that he had contact with a entity from another dimension that was evil.
Mm-hmm.
And that also helped him create this. And it's leading people astray. So I just want people to know that I am conscious of all that. And I do every time I use it, I don't just pick it up and I'm not just, hey, you know, what are we doing? I take it very seriously. And I think to myself, should I be using this? What am I
Mm-hmm.
using this for? What's the question? Why? So I just want people to know that's where I'm coming from. And right now, it's just this whole thing I keep saying there's many paths to the same mountaintop, you know, and this is my path right now. And maybe one day I'll burn it, you know, who knows? But for now, this is just how I feel. And I want to stay true to myself because in the past I wasn't. And in the past, I wasn't true to myself. I couldn't sleep at night. You know, I was overweight. I had severe issues. I wasn't happy. You know, I was engaging in behavior that just was not healthy. People would call it
Mm-hmm.
like addictive behavior, not with a substance, but you know, other things. I had severe intimacy issues. And now that I listen to my inner guide, my inner intuition, which I feel is the connection with the creator. Hello, it's that electricity
Yep.
that makes me feel alive. What else is God inside me? I go with that now. And it's not always right. Once in a while, I'll bump into the wall, you know, but that's leading me so far to say it's okay right now. And then I'm aware of trickster entities like Loki, which can exist inside, you know. So if it's something that I look at, I'm like, what's really going on? But when I look at the cards, what it really does for me, um, it's kind of like when you have an epiphany about something, like you know some things, and then you watch like a movie and you have an aha moment. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like that for me. I look at the card and it's able to shift ideas in my head and give me that aha moment about things. It helps me remove blocks and stuff. That's really where I come from. You know, it's not like I'm praying to some entity. You know, I'll still draw circles sometimes. I have like Santo Palo wood you can light and it's like sage or whatever, but it smells like a campfire. And I ceremonially will do the circle. And the reason I do that is it's just like the Tao. And the Tao says when, you know, they give you in one of the verses, it gives you all these instructions that are like really hard to remember. And it goes in, but if you can't remember these, just remain at the center of the circle.
Yep.
And what it means is to just remain balanced. So if I draw the circle, it could be to keep out evil entities and spirits, but it's just to remind myself to remain balanced and take whatever comes in the light and the dark and integrate it, you know, and integrate it on that path to emulate Jesus, the golden rule, natural law.
Well, what I'll say is if you have any insight into Aleister Crowley, let us know on our Instagram at terrible2, TAROTBULL and the number 2. Maybe you
Look
have
at you
I know.
promoting the IG. Yeah, it is a new
Maybe
podcast. Look at that, everybody, all our old fans. Look at that. I forgot and she
maybe
remembered.
well, maybe they know more than well, they definitely probably know more than I do.
I would
So
love to
let us
talk to people about this. Yeah, if anybody has input, please. I'm open to all this stuff. You know, I don't want to be doing something I shouldn't be, but this is what the understanding I've come to. And I just want to let people know I love to read the Bible. When I was young, I used to read it all the time. And now it just means different things to me. And I feel
Mhm.
the same ideas that are embodied in the tarot are at some level in the Bible. It's just a different way to represent it. And, you know, I know a lot of people say thou shalt not have graven images. And you have to remember that the words in the Bible have been translated so much. And the real idea I feel behind that law is more about not ever keeping anything concrete and having one dogma. I feel that's really more about dogma and having one solid idea. It's more about staying in the center of the circle. If the circle moves, you have to balance, because it's really all about perspective. So I guess that's all I'll say for now. But if anyone had, you know, if they disagree, please let's talk about it, man. I love it. I love to disagree with people because that's how you learn, you know, and I
Right.
love to learn more. So
Well, I feel like we need to wrap this up because I feel like we've been talking now for like
yeah.
almost 2
Oh my
hours.
God, it's already Wednesday. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? So we will be back next week with an episode that goes back to our normal kind of format, talking about cards. We'll be looking back. We have not finished our last suit, and then maybe we will jump back into looking at our Major Arcana cards, depending on how much time we use up with our normal nonsense talking at the beginning. But Brandon, do you have any final words you'd like to say for this episode?
I would just say that if you're listening, thank you very much. And if you disagree, thank you even more for still listening. And we want to know about it. Let us know, because that's what this is all about. We're all about uniting, not disagreeing. There's too much division in the world right now. Why be like everybody else? It's so corny. Why would you want to be divided? I was, like I said, I was at a get together the other day, and there was a devout Muslim talking to a devout born again Christian and agreeing about everything. And me, what am I? I don't know. I'm a crazy tarot boy guy, and I was there agreeing with him, and it was great. So if we can do it, you can do it.
And all I'm gonna say is we're back.
We're back.
Yay!
All right, guys. Thank you. Go to tarotbowl.com and follow us there. All right.